Okay, reading out of Subpart B of Reg Z, according to the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 1026.7, open-end credit periodic statements. The creditor shall furnish the consumer with a periodic statement that discloses the following terms to the extent applicable. A. Rules affecting home equity plans. The requirements of paragraph A of this section apply only to home equity plans subject to the requirements of 1026.40. Alternatively, a creditor subject to this paragraph may, at its option, comply with any of the requirements of paragraph B of this section. However, any creditor that chooses not to provide a disclosure under paragraph A7 of this section must comply with paragraphs B6 of this section. Previous balance. The account balance outstanding at the beginning of the billing cycle. 1. 2. Identification of transactions. An identification of each credit transaction in accordance with 1026.8. 3. Credits. Any credit to the account during the billing cycle, including the amount of the date and the date of crediting. The date need not be provided if a delay in accounting does not result in any finance or other charge. 4. Periodic rates. Except as provided in paragraph A42 of this section, each periodic rate that may be used to compute the finance charge, the range of balances to which it is applicable, and the corresponding annual percentage rate. If no finance charge is imposed when the outstanding balance is less than a certain amount, the creditor is not required to disclose that fact, or the balance below which no finance charge will be imposed. If different periodic rates apply to different types of transactions, the types of transactions to which the periodic rates apply shall also be disclosed. For variable rate plans, the fact that the periodic rates may vary. Exception. An annual percentage rate that differs from the rate that would otherwise apply and is offered only for a promotional period need not be disclosed except in periods in which the offered rate is actually applied. Balance. 5. Balance on which finance charge computed. The amount of the balance to which the periodic rate was applied and an explanation of how that balance was determined. When a balance is determined without first deducting all credits and payments made during the billing cycle, the fact and the amount of the credits and payments shall be disclosed. 6. Amount of finance charge and other charges. Creditors may comply with paragraphs A6 of the section or with paragraph B6 of the section at their option. I. Finance charges. The amount of any finance charge debited or added to the account during the billing cycle using the term finance charge. The components of the finance charge shall be individually itemized and identified to show the amounts due to the application of any periodic rates and the amounts of any other type of finance charge. If there is more than one periodic rate, the amount of the finance charge attributable to each rate need not be separately itemized and identified. Roman numeral 2 under amount of finance charge and other charges is other charges. The amounts itemized and identified by type and any charges other than finance charges debited to the account during the billing cycle. 7. Annual percentage rate. At the creditor's option, when a finance charge is imposed during the billing cycle, the annual percentage rate determined under 1026.14c using the term annual percentage rate. 8. Grace period. The date by which or the time period within which the new balance or any portion of the new balance must be paid to avoid additional finance charges. If such a time period is provided, a creditor may, at its option and without disclosure, impose no finance charge if payment is received after the time period's expiration. Address for notice of billing errors. 9. The address to be used for notice of billing errors. Alternatively, the address may be provided on the billing rate statement permitted by 1026.9A2. 10. Closing date of billing cycle, new balance. The closing date of the billing cycle and the account balance outstanding on that date. B. Rules affecting open-end non-home secured plans. The requirements of paragraph B of this section apply only to plans other than home equity plans subject to the requirements of 1026.40. Previous balance. the account balance outstanding at the beginning of the billing cycle. 2. Identification of transactions. An identification of each transaction in accordance with 1026.8. 3. Credits. Any credit to the account during the billing cycle, including the amount and the date of crediting. The date need not be provided if a delay in crediting does not result in any finance or other charge. 4. Periodic rates. Except as provided in paragraph B4(2) of this section, each periodic rate that may be used to compute the interest rate expressed as an APR and using the term APR along with the range of balances to which it is applicable. If no interest charge is imposed when the outstanding balance is less than a certain amount, the creditor is not required to disclose that fact, or the balance below which no interest will be imposed. The types of transactions to which the periodic rates apply shall also be disclosed. For variable rate plans, the fact that the annual percentage rate may vary. Exception. A promotional rate, as that term is defined in 1026.16 G2I, is required to be disclosed only in periods in which the offered rate is actually applied. 5. Balance on which finance charge computed. The amount of the balance to which the periodic rate was applied and an explanation of how that balance was determined using the term balance subject to interest rate. When a balance is determined without first deducting all credits and payments made during the billing cycle, the fact and the amount of the credits and payments shall be disclosed. As alternative to providing an explanation of how the balance was determined, a creditor that uses a balance computation method identified in 1026.60G may, at the creditor's option, identify the name of the balance computation method and provide a toll-free telephone number where consumers may obtain from the creditor more information about the balance computation method and how resulting interest charges were determined. If the method used is not identified in 1026.60G, the creditor shall provide a brief explanation of the method used. Charges imposed. The amounts of any charges imposed as part of a plan as stated in 1026.6B3 grouped together in proximity to transactions identified under paragraph B2 of this section, substantially similar to Sample G18A and Appendix G to this part. Roman numeral 2 under charges imposed is interest. 3 is fees. Interest. Finance charges attributable to periodic interest rates using the term interest charge must be grouped together under the heading interest charge, itemized and totaled by type of transaction, and a total of finance charges attributable to periodic interest rates using the term total interest must be disclosed for the statement period and calendar year to date using a format substantially similar to Sample G18A and Appendix G to this part. Roman numeral 3, fees. Charges imposed as part of a plan other than charges attributable to periodic interest rates must be grouped together under the heading fees, identified consistent with the feature or type, and itemized, and a total of charges using the term fees must be disclosed for the statement period and calendar date year to date using a format substantially similar to Sample G-18A and Appendix G to this part. 7. Change in terms and increased penalty rate summary for open-end, non-home secured plans. Creditors that provide a change in terms notice required by 1026.9C or a rate increase notice required by 1026.9G on or with the periodic statement must disclose the information in 1026.9C24A and C24B if applicable, or 1026.9G3I on the periodic statement in accordance with the format requirements in 9C24D and 9G32C forms G18F and G18G in Appendix G this part. 8. Grace period. The date by which, or the time period within which, the new balance or any portion of the new balance must be paid to avoid additional finance charges. If such a time period is provided, a creditor may, at his option and without disclosure, impose no finance charge if payment is received after the time period's expiration. 9. Address for notice of billing errors. The address to be used for notice of billing errors. Alternatively, the address may be provided on billing rate statement permitted in 9A2. 10. Closing date of billing cycle, new balance. The closing date of the billing cycle and the account balance outstanding on that date. The new balance must be disclosed in accordance with the format requirements of paragraph B13 of this section. 11. Due date late payment costs, except as provided in paragraph B11(2) of this section and in accordance with the format requirements in paragraph B13 of this section for a credit card account under an open-end not home secured consumer credit plan. A card issuer must provide on each periodic statement A being a due date for a payment. A due date disclosed pursuant to the paragraph shall be the same day of the month for each billing cycle. B. The amount of any late payment fee and any increased periodic rates expressed as an annual percentage rate and may be imposed on the account as a result of a late payment. If a range of late payment fees may be assessed, the card issuer may state the range of fees or the highest fee and an indication that the fee imposed could be lower. If the rate may be increased for more than one feature or balance, the card issuer may state the range of rates or the highest rate that could apply, and at the issuer's option, an indication that the rate imposed could be lower. Roman numeral 2 exception. The requirements of B11(1) of this section do not apply to the following: A and B. A. Periodic statements provided solely for charge card accounts, and B. Periodic statements provided for a charge-off account where payment of the entire account balance is due immediately. 12. Repayment disclosures in general, except as provided in paragraph B12(2) and B12(5) of this section for a credit card account under an open-end non-home secured consumer credit plan. A card issuer must provide the following disclosures on each periodic statement. That's A, B, C, D, E, F, F1, I, and 2. Okay, so repayment of disclosures. A. The following statement with a bold heading: minimum payment warning. If you make only the minimum payment each period, you will pay more in interest and it will take you longer to pay off your balance. B. The minimum payment estimate. As described in Appendix M1 to this part, the minimum payment, if the minimum payment estimate is less than 2 years, the card issuer must disclose the estimate in months. Otherwise, the estimate must be disclosed in years and rounded to the nearest whole year. C. The minimum payment total cost estimate as described in Appendix M1 to this part. The minimum payment total cost estimate must be rounded either to the nearest whole dollar or to the nearest cent at the card issuer's option. D. A statement that the minimum payment repayment estimate and the minimum payment total cost estimate are based on the current outstanding balance shown on the periodic statement. A statement that the minimum payment repayment estimate and the minimum payment total cost estimate are based on the assumption that only minimum payments are made and no other amounts are added to the balance. E. A toll-free telephone number where the consumer may obtain from the card issuer information about credit counseling services consistent with paragraph B12(4) of this section, and F1, except as provided in paragraph B12I F2 of this section, the following disclosures. I. The estimated monthly payment for repayment in 36 months, as described in Appendix M1 to this part. The estimate monthly payment for repayment in 36 months must be rounded either to the nearest whole dollar or to the nearest cent at the card issuer's option. Roman numeral 2, a statement that the card issuer estimates that the consumer will repay the outstanding balance shown on the periodic statement in 3 years if the consumer pays the estimated monthly payment each year for 3 years. Roman numeral 3, the total cost estimate for repayment at 36 months as described in Appendix M1 to this part. The total cost estimate for repayment in 36 months must be rounded either to the nearest whole dollar or to the nearest cent at the card issuer's option. And 4, the savings estimate for repayment in 36 months as described in Appendix M1 of this part. The savings estimate for repayment in 36 months must be rounded either to the nearest whole dollar or to the nearest cent at the card issuer's option. 2, the requirements of paragraph B12I F1 of this section do not apply to a periodic statement in any of the following circumstances. I. Minimum payment repayment estimate that is disclosed on the periodic statement pursuant to paragraph B12IB of this section after rounding is 3 years or less. And Roman numeral 2, the estimated monthly payment for repayment in 36 months as described in M1 of this to this part after rounding as set forth in paragraph B12IF1I of this section that is calculated for a particular billing cycle is less than the minimum payment required for the plan for that billing cycle. And Roman numeral 3, the billing cycle where an account has both a balance and a revolving feature where the required minimum payments for this feature will not amortize that balance in a fixed amount of time specified in the account agreement and a balance in the fixed repayment feature where the required minimum payment for this fixed repayment feature will amortize that balance in a fixed amount of time specified in the account agreement, which is less than 36 months. Roman numeral 2? How do you go from Roman numeral 3 to Roman numeral 2? Not sure, but Roman numeral 2 is about negative or no amortization. If negative or no amortization occurs when calculating the minimum payment repayment estimate as described in paragraph M1 of this part, a card issuer must provide the following disclosures on the periodic statement instead of the disclosures set forth in paragraph B12(1) of this section. A. The following statement. Minimum payment warning. Even if you make no more charges using this card, if you make only the minimum payment each month, we estimate you will never pay off the balance shown on this statement because your payment will be less than the interest charged each month. The following statement. If you make more than the minimum payment each period, you will pay less in interest and pay off your balance sooner. C. The estimated monthly payment for repayment in 36 months, as described in Appendix M1 to this part. The estimated monthly payment for repayment in 36 months must be rounded either to the nearest whole dollar or to the nearest cent at the issuer's option. A. Statement that the card issuer estimates that the consumer will repay the outstanding balance shown on the periodic statement in 3 years if the consumer pays the estimated monthly payment each month for 3 years. And E. A toll-free telephone number where the consumer may obtain from the card issuer information about credit counseling services consistent with paragraph B12(4) of this section. Roman numeral 3, format requirements. A card issuer must provide the disclosures required in paragraph B12(1) or B12(2) of this section in accordance with the format requirements of paragraph B13 of this section and in a format substantially similar to samples G18C1 and G18C2 and G18C3 and Appendix G to this part as applicable. Roman numeral 4, provision of information about credit counseling services. A. Required information. To the extent available from the United States trustee or a bankruptcy administrator, a card issuer must provide through the toll-free telephone number disclosed pursuant to paragraphs B12I or B12(2) of this section, the name, street address, telephone number, and website address for at least 3 organizations that have been approved by the United States trustee or a bankruptcy administrator pursuant to 11 United States Code 111A1 to provide credit counseling services in, at the card issuer's option, either the state in which the billing address where the account is located or the state specified by the consumer. B. Updating required information. At least annually, a card issuer must update the information provided pursuant to paragraph B12(4)A of this section for consistency with the information available from the United States trustee or a bankruptcy administrator. Roman numeral 5, exemptions. Paragraph B12 of the section does not apply to charge card accounts that require payment of outstanding balances in full at the end of each billing cycle. B. A billing cycle immediately following 2 consecutive billing cycles in which the consumer paid the entire balance in full, had a zero outstanding balance, or had a credit balance. And C. A billing cycle where paying the minimum payment due for that billing cycle will pay the entire outstanding balance on the account for that billing cycle. Number 13, format requirements. The due date required by paragraph B11 of this section shall be disclosed on the front end of the first page of the periodic statement. The amount of the late payment fee and the annual percentage rates required by paragraph B11 of the section shall be stated in close proximity to the due date. The ending balance required by paragraph B10 of the section and the disclosures required by paragraph B12 of this section shall be disclosed closely proximate to the minimum payment due, the due date, late payment fee, and annual percentage rate, ending balance, minimum payment due, and disclosures required by paragraph B12 of this section shall be grouped together. Sample G18D and Appendix G to this part sets forth an example of how these terms may be grouped. Number 14, deferred interest or similar transactions. For accounts with an outstanding balance subject to a deferred interest or similar program, the date by which that outstanding balance must be paid in full in order to avoid the obligation to pay finance charges on such balance must be disclosed on the front of any page of the periodic statement issued during the deferred interest period, beginning with the first periodic statement issued during the deferred interest period that reflects the deferred interest or similar transaction. The disclosure provided pursuant to this paragraph must be substantially similar to sample G18H and Peg Sheet of this part.